Yes, so the big debate just wrapped up, and I'll be honest, I thought it was a good debate. I enjoyed it. The star of this evening's debate, obviously, the fly that had taken residence on the top of Mike Pence's head. And immediately, within seconds, there were a number of Twitter accounts of the fly on Mike Pence's head, 1, 2, 3, all the way down, I think, to 10 at one point. That is the wonders of Twitter, but a lot to get to. My thought on this is, I thought both candidates, both VP candidates, did their respective camps. A good thing. Pence, obviously, I think a huge boost for Trump. Just my view. And Harris, I think she didn't lose the game. She did extraordinarily well, but she didn't lose any ground, which I think is good. And here to share some thoughts on the big debate, my esteemed panel. I've got Marshall Herskowitz, film director and president emeritus of the Producers Guild of America. I've got Greg Herskowitz. He is the New York Times bestselling thriller author, and our good friend Dr. Keith Pochek, all with us. Guys, thanks so much for taking time for us.
So happy to be here with my brother, Greg Herskowitz, who is actually Greg Hurwitz, but back in the old country, they were probably in the same family.
Did I screw that up? My wife just threw something at me, as I deserved. But let's go around the room and figure out where we are. Marshall, let's start with you. Thoughts on the debate?
I agree with you. I think nobody was badly hurt. I felt it was essentially a defensive debate, and I felt that it's not going to convince anybody who's away from what they thought. I thought that Pence actually was too aggressive, held onto the floor too long, had to be yelled at by the moderator too much, and to me that hurt him just because of what happened with Trump the week before. But in general, I think they both did well for their sides, and I don't think it's going to change the calculus much.
I'm with you. Pence is learning from Trump. There are no rules that apply to them, so I don't think it matters in his mind. I'm with you. Let's go to you, Dr. Pochek. Thoughts?
Yeah, same story. I agree with Marshall. I think that, I don't think many people were budged one way or the other by this debate. I think, you have a incredibly seasoned and talented multiracial woman who's strong, and then you also have someone who's a trained robot who was chosen by a felon who's a career who's a criminal asset in Paul Manafort, and so I was already obviously decided before I tuned into the debate, and I don't think that I was swayed, and I don't think that probably many other people were swayed either. And I agree with Marshall. I think that Pence definitely came out pretty aggressive, and Kamala towards the end started to push back with the same kind of tactics. But like you said, I think this was all in all a lot more civil than the first debate, and I don't think it changed many minds.
I think clearly she held back because she didn't want what we knew or I still think the response tomorrow is going to be of the angry black woman, the pit bull.
Right.
That's what I've been expecting, and what I expect tomorrow to come out of this. Greg Hurwitz, let me get your thoughts. Since they've already gone, you in agreement with them, or you've got another thought?
Well, I think they're right, but I think that they're underweighting how much Pence might have pissed off women tonight. I think women are going to have a different reaction to this. I think everything else is going to be break even the way that they assessed it. And so I don't think it's a huge movement. I don't know if that's something that's ticket changing, but there was a sort of smugness and knowingness and lack of abiding by the rules, not paired with charisma, which I think is the part that's deadly, that is going to cost Pence, I think, significantly in some ways, because he's just like, and in every other way, I just felt like they certainly didn't stumble. I mean, I thought she's the most charismatic that she has been. I feel like watching how she's grown to inhabit herself and her, like even more so than when she was running as a presidential candidate. It's been interesting to see her sort of season into herself and her comfort level. So I thought she was impressive. And, you know, I'd say the one place that I think there might be a difference in outcome would be for women.
You know, I was going to say the same thing about her. I think it's important to note that she did so much better in this debate than she did in any of the primary debates.
Not
She's
even
come
close.
really a long way. And the concerns I had about her, which was in some way that she wasn't centered, that she didn't really know what she believed, were not there tonight. I felt that she was very much in possession of herself. And I looked at her and I thought, okay, if she's president, it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Do you think she allayed some of the fears people might have had that, she's going to be the, the president, she's going to be the one in charge? Because I've gotten this frame from a lot of moderate Democrats who think, Joe's just going to, kind of go off into the wasteland and she's going to be this hyper liberal who's going to take us off the edge into socialism, which I got to be honest, I'm surprised the S word didn't come up tonight.
I mean, it's so ridiculous. I think the problem is, and in fairness, I think that her lack of, God, I'm going to use the phrase branding and hate myself for it simultaneously as I'm using it right out of the gates. I think I think this is closer to who she actually is than how she was acting in the presidential debates. And I think that who she is somebody who is, a prosecutor. She's got a lot of empathy. She's got a very interesting background. She's got a broad range of views, but she's essentially towards the middle of the political spectrum. And I think in the primaries, as often happens in the primaries, she tacked a bit further left. I think she got tangled up in a lot of social issues that were given uneven weighting with a T to the key issues that I think are in play for a different swath of Americans who are going to need to win the Electoral College. And I feel like she's coming in really strong in the middle. And additionally, what I think is incredibly helpful for the party is that nobody is calling all of these things out. The internal sort of bickering, I feel like there's going to be, I think she presented a front that everyone in the party, in the base, can get behind. And it also allows room for people who are outside the party to come on board.
No, I agree. Keith, your thoughts?
I agree. I mean, I think that in a big crowded primary debate, when you only have a few snippets of time to make your statement, there's so much pressure to make your mark. Whereas when you're in this one-on-one style debate, you know that you're going to have your time, and you can kind of be patient with it, and you can make your points, and you don't have to be pressured. And I think that she did seem much more comfortable with that method. But I think honestly, she would be best if she could moderate the debate between Trump and Joe, because she's obviously most skilled in being able to drive the line of questioning with her background. But
right.
All in all, I think she did very well and definitely outperformed where she was in the primary debates.
Now in these VP debates, you always get the moment. The moment you go back to, for me, the biggest moment in any VP debate was Lloyd Benson to Dan Quayle. You're no Jack Kennedy, or unfortunately the James Stockdale who am I kind of thing. For me, that moment that I think people tomorrow are going to be talking about, and I'd love to hear your thought. If you think there was a moment, was they're coming for you moment. For me, that was that thing that I think I'm going to remember tomorrow, because it's biting, and it was I think it was directed at most people who are afraid that they're going to lose their health care, or they're going to get evicted from their homes, or tossed into the streets. Greg, let's start with you. Was there a moment in this for you?
You know what? It was very different. I'm gonna now not answer the question, so I'm gonna pretend to be a vice presidential candidate. To me, it was less about the moment than one of the things we talk about a lot between Trump and Hillary in those early debates is, I say often that Trump he lies all the time, but he's fundamentally honest. You know what he's feeling, right? You know what sentiment, and he's conveying it. And authenticity became sort of the buzzword of that cycle. And Bernie and Trump inhabited a sort of authenticity. And I think that tonight, one of the things we think about is that it seemed like Hillary just slaughtered him in all the debates if you go on the basis of the prefrontal cortex. But that's not what people are watching. What they're watching is how somebody, I think, embodies themselves. And as I was watching her tonight, like the questions to me for a focus group, does she seem competent? Yes, without question. Right? Does she seem tough? Absolutely. Does she seem fair and judicious? Right? Does she seem comfortable with herself? Is she calm under pressure? Does she not get too angry? Does she not get rattled? There's a whole constellation of questions that aren't going to be answered for how many points she managed to tick off about healthcare. People already kind of know the issues. And I think she presented a sort of embodied, competent person in a way that's much more valuable than what the buzzwords are going to be. I think the sense of her that we got is what people are going to take away.
No, I agree with you on that. But, for me, everyone needs a sound bite. It's kind of hard to put all of that into a sound bite. But Keith, I'm curious your thoughts. You agree or disagree with me?
I agree. I mean, I would have liked to heard a little more about just the protection of rank and file Americans and workers. But I mean, I think she did a good job. She made that statement. They're coming for you. They're coming for your health care. That hit home. I would have liked to have seen her drive that point home a little harder.
I would have liked to, maybe had her ask, what exactly is the Pence plan that they claim they have for when they destroy the Affordable Care Act.
That was when he was, he was signing the blank pages. That was the plan right there.
Yeah, that was it right there. Marshall, thoughts?
Well, I have two thoughts. I'll answer your question by saying if there was one moment where somebody landed a jab, the strongest, it was Pence when she refused to answer about the packing of the courts. I thought she looked bad there because you just got to answer a question like that. But I'm going to actually expand on what Greg said. That I think, we talk about this a lot. That people are watching this and they're watching it at a very deep gut level. And what's sticking with me now as the minutes tick by after this thing is she was so likable in this debate. She had a twinkle in her eye. She had a smile. She was unflappable. She was strong. In other words, you can be likable and still strong. And yes, at the end she was saying, no, he insulted me and I really need this time. But she didn't do it in a rageful way. That I feel, as I'm thinking about this, that no matter what was said or what was landed, people are going to they're going to like her. They're just going to feel comfortable with her in a way they may not have before.
Yeah, I think she did herself, a lot of good in that. I think she did the ticket good as well in Biden choosing her. But like I said at the beginning, I don't think that they did anything to hurt either camp. And I do think that, to a degree, Pence did, kind of reinvent the history of the administration by, regurgitating some things that Trump likes to throw out that aren't true. But constantly putting it there that we've given American families $2,000. The tax cuts benefited the people at the bottom. We built this robust economy. I was stuck on that. And do you think people are going to care about that, Greg? I mean, do you think that's going to be something that the number of things that he just continued to tick off that aren't true? Do you think the fact checkers, people are going to care about that?
I don't think that they will any more than people already know. People aren't voting for Trump because he's honest, right? They're voting for Trump because they feel a lack of authenticity and clarity. People who look, I'm excluding the extreme, far edge of the party who votes for Trump, like we do with ours. But they believe that he is saying things that resonate with them on some sort of gut level, but they understand that he's not truthful. And so that litany and that routine that Pence does, it's the same thing he did. He just looked older and more tired and had a rougher record to defend. I mean, the other thing that I think is very positive about her performance is everything he did, she's got to do backwards and in high heels, right? So he's got his script, right? He knows how to do that move, and it's sort of the grin and shake your head politician. But as you already pointed out, if her tone comes on too strong, she's strident. If she gets too angry, you mentioned earlier, is there going to be a racial reaction to that? There's so many boxes that she has to check in order to get through a performance without hurting herself it's a very different list than what Pence has to. And so for me, not that this will make a difference in the outcome, but one of the things for me that I found immensely impressive was her ability to do all of that with, as Marshall said, a twinkle in her eye and a smile. She didn't blunder anything. in a way that was bad, and she came across as strong and likable, and that's harder to do for her in this. So she had to pull triple weight here, I think.
Yeah, she had a real thin wire to be walking on, and I agree with Marshall. I think the only misstep is not answering the question about court packing. But to be honest, I believe if they ram Amy Coney Barrett through, I'm advocating for putting as many justices on the court to even it out, so that we have an even playing field, in the next election if we get the power. That's just my view, and I would have perhaps liked to have heard their position on it.
Rick, can I ask you something? I mean, I think the thing that's so frustrating is for her everyone wants an answer,
right.
And there's so much prevarication from Trump and for Pence that at any turn, I feel like the games that there's a higher standard that we have to be held to all the time in a way. And I think her even saying, look, I have no idea what the next 27 days are going to hold. In the list of the last week, the president has gotten coronavirus, right? Half of the Senate is infected. I'm not going to answer that right now because I don't know yet right now. Is a better answer than constructing a narrative that everybody knows that you're constructing. And she did it a lot less than Pence, but I don't think we want to do that.
I think you're absolutely right. But something of an answer had to come other than the obvious dancing she was trying. That's just my thought.
Yeah.
Keith, let me get your thoughts on
that. I thought there was an interesting moment when Pence could not accept when she said no one making under $400,000 a year will pay higher taxes, and Pence kept saying they're going to repeal that bill. That means those people are going to pay more taxes. To me, that was a revealment of character and of a point of view. It's like we always talk about how Trump projects. That was Pence projecting. In other words, these guys want to get rid of the ACA, and they have nothing to replace it with. They just want to get rid of it. He can't imagine that Biden's going to come in and say, I'm getting rid of that tax law, and I'm going to put a new one in. That just didn't compute for him. He just kept saying, no, you're going to raise taxes. To me, there's a very interesting rigidity in that I kind of sort of defines where that party is right now.
Yeah. And the other part of it, Marshall, is, at least in my view is, for those who've been talking about the tax law, in a couple of years, any of those tax breaks that working people may have gotten sunset and go away. The corporate tax breaks, they're forever. And I think that's something that could have been brought up, a little nuanced for most people. But, at the end of it, those tax breaks, if someone did get them, eventually go away.
By the way, I was under the impression, maybe I'm wrong, that they amended that law and got rid of the sunset on those tax breaks, which, by the way, will automatically add some ridiculous amount to the deficit, trillions and trillions. But I was under the impression they got rid of the sunset, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, I'll have to double check that. I was under the impression they hadn't, but ultimately what you've got is a system where, this administration, even when the economy was good, was still running $1 trillion deficit.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
Just plain ridiculous. Keith, your thoughts?
Yeah. Agreed. I mean, I think that they've obviously relinquished their position on fiscal conservatism, and still yet, that they still have their same base supporting them. So clearly that wasn't their their stance. It was grounded in something else. And so you have to dig deeper, I think, on, what are the underlying ideologies. And I think it's becoming a little more clear. I don't have to, paint this into a corner here, but it's not fiscal conservatism.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, as they were talking about race, it was interesting to me listening to Mike Pence talk about how Donald Trump, has condemned racism and the white supremacists, and then immediately turns around and basically accuses Senator Harris of being a racist, which I thought was an interesting flip. Thoughts, Greg?
Well, here's the thing I think about race. I don't think anything came out of tonight that made a big difference one way or another. The one thing that I think is worth observing, I thought about this when Joe Biden was doing his town hall, is he is too old-fashioned to talk about race in politically correct language. And because of that, he only talks about race from his heart. And I think that's a huge asset. And I think that because part of it is he'll be telling a story, his phraseology feels a little bit old, but there's a way where you understand where he's coming from. And when we're talking about what this ticket needs to embody right now, in a lot of ways, the brutal and grueling primary process, that Hillary Clinton did not undergo, I do think his brought together a ticket that really represents a lot of the best facets of the liberal mindset, from Biden, who is clearly vehemently anti-racist, but is less concerned with issues of wokeness or able to traffic in them at his age. And then you have Kamala Harris, who talks about race convincingly and in the first person. And she's also a prosecutor. And she has a very sort of nuts and bolts approach that can deal with the criminal justice system and the prison industrial complex, which are where these issues are just the most clearly embedded. And so they represent all these different facets of ways that it can be discussed. And I think almost anybody can look into that ticket and understand some shape of themselves as a liberal and how they want race to be approached.
I agree. And I think to piggyback on Greg's point there, I would have liked to have seen some comments on the cabinet that the Biden administration will assemble, just because they do, he's obviously attracted a ton of experienced, just expert people who he will surround himself with and listen to, as far as opinions are concerned. And I'd like to have seen that point kind of played a little bit more heavily by Kamala tonight. But that kind of does just piggyback on the point that you just made there, Greg.
Marshall, you want to weigh in?
No, I think I think race didn't play a big part in this debate, and I guess in some way it was a relief to me because I'm really tired of it. I think it's being handled so poorly by the left and by the right. I was glad that she said that none of the judges that they had confirmed were of color. I think that was important to say, but I think race has become quicksand in many different ways in the culture right now. And I think turning down the heat on that conversation at this moment before the election is a good idea.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I'm surprised that Pence didn't hammer on it more and more into the, the cities are burning. I was really expecting a lot more of.
You can see in their attack response ads that are short, where they respond immediately on social media, where they're set up to do that. A lot of them are people of color voting for Trump, like short memes. I think they're very, very concerned about how those margins are doing, the same way the Democrats look to say, gosh, if we can pick up, 5% more of the evangelical vote. I mean, I think they're aware that they're in a catastrophic free fall. And so that narrative would be piling on more than some of the other ways he chose to go at her.
Yeah, there were a number of moments, during the debate where I'm listening to Pence talk, and immediately, as someone who claims to be a Christian, I keep remembering that one of those rules they want to have plastered all over the walls: "Thou shalt not bear false witness." And I'm going, you did remember that one, right? I guess it's just one of those moments. But the abortion issue obviously came up, and you knew it was going to in response to the Supreme Court. Were you surprised that Pence regurgitated the Trump line of abortions right up till the moment of birth? Because I got to be honest with you, when we had our kids, we raced to the hospital at 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't remember the doctor going, okay, which way are we going with this? I don't remember that being an option, but I think Trump wants us to believe that. In fact, he just said the other day that evidently people who are pro-choice want abortions up till the moment of birth and beyond, he said.
Beyond, yes.
Curious thoughts?
No, I think it was inevitable that he would say that. He didn't push it very hard, by the way. But I feel that that's something that the Democrats actually need to respond to. I mean, there is an answer to that, and they haven't. In other words, late-term abortions only happen if the baby's going to die. That's why they happen. There is no other reason. In other words, it is to spare the mother the trauma of having to give birth to a dead child or a child that will die within hours. and somebody needs to say that, so this idea that somehow someone would decide in the 9th month, you know what, I don't want to have a kid, let's get rid of it. That's just crap.
Yeah.
And it's not being fought hard enough.
I think there almost need to be a series of sound bites coming out of, the Biden Harris camp of them literally stating what their issue is. Like when they both announced violence, when Biden finally came out and said, I'm unilaterally, right, I am uniformly denouncing violence and looting. It's almost like these statements need to be made in 15-second sound bites and disseminated, because it's so pervasive and so ridiculous. Yeah. There's no way to kind of get a crowbar beneath them.
Yeah. And it bothers me, like what you said, Greg, before, is that the Democrats are just held to a higher standard. These guys can lie about everything, but we're sitting here saying, well, the Democrats have to be clear about abortion. They have to be clear about this. They have to be clear about that. When on the other side, they not only lie about everything, but they hold positions that are so completely inhumane. Like family separations didn't come up. There are a million things that did not come up of the cruelties of this administration that somehow just go by somehow.
Yeah, but ultimately, they're the pro-life people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, did anyone find it ironic that he's talking about killing Soleimani, and seconds later he says he's pro-life? I personally think that was an act of war. I shed no tears for that person being taken out, but I think strategically it wasn't a bright move.
No, and they're still going to get us for it.
Marshall, I was thinking about when you were talking, we talk all the time about how large portions of the Democratic Party are held hostage in some regards by the most vehement far radical left, right? Because they're afraid to alienate that base of the vote.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm thinking about is we're all approaching this moment in time through this intense funnel of social media and information that at this point, I almost feel as if we're all clinically insane as we're leading up to what this is. Those of us who have to follow and engage with this news cycle. And in a weird way, I believe that we're also being held hostage by the right for the very thing that Marshall said, that we're held to a higher standard. I think it also, and rightly so, of alienating voters who we need, who we have alienated in the past. So I'm not saying that we don't have a role in this. That we have these ridiculous standards. I believe in 100 years, if you took a panel of 5,000 people to watch this debate or watch Biden and Trump, that the winner of the debate would actually be incredibly clear, and there would be sort of there wasn't a competition to me tonight. I think if we view this from a distance rather than in this American moment, it's clear if we did a pure down the column fact check. She was more honest. She was more forthcoming. She was more articulate. She was more composed. She tackled the issues and answered the questions more often. Was she perfect? Absolutely not. Did she dodge some questions? Absolutely not. But if we're scoring this like a boxing fight, she mopped the floor with him, right? But we can't do that right now because it's not enough to do that. It's so complicated where we are. And there's so many things that the Democrats have to do to win back some of the trust that we've fractured and to prove where we are and that we're not held hostage by certain aspects on our side, that it's gotten really convoluted in a way that I don't believe objectively when we leave this period of insanity, we'll view it as being a close debate the way we might tonight.
No, I think you're right. And one of the things that I find interesting is we had lowered the bar so low for Pence, and the bar was so high for her. You're right. If you were looking at it from 20,000 feet, she mopped the floor with him. But once you make that adjustment for, had Pence just not stumbled over himself, and he would have won. It's my view. The expectations were completely off.
Yep.
So Keith, I want to go back to the abortion question real quick because you're the doctor here, obviously. Because I think that it's important to push back on this 9-month thing. Have you ever been part of making that decision at the last minute where a couple came in and go, you know what, we kind of changed our mind on this. We'd like to go the other way.
Never. And it's I think that's a point like that has not been pushed back against enough. I think, listen to Greg talk earlier, late term, a healthy, viable fetus that's delivered that's an induction and delivery because the mother's health is at risk, and that baby
Yeah.
becomes a baby up for adoption. So, I mean, at least in my experience with this, obviously I'm not an obstetrician, but
Yep.
that just does not happen.
Right.
And, and then for them to suggest that there's infanticide that happens after birth is just absurd. But it just plays on, and I think Greg hinted at this earlier. It's not the prefrontal cortex here that's at work. It's the amygdala. It's the reptile brain. It's the emotion, that's getting played upon. And so all you have to do is believe that it's true, and then whatever they say, as long as you pre-believe it, they'll those folks will embrace it.
Yeah, they'll buy anything. Now, I wanted to get your thought as the medical expert here, because I thought one of the great lines that Harris did have was about the vaccines, where she said, if Dr. Fauci says it's safe, yeah, I'm going to take it. If Donald Trump says it's safe, I'm not going to take it. So as the medical professional here, you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you can't speed those through and expect everyone to embrace them, especially, you have to consider also that a lot of the right are the anti-vaxxers to begin with. And, even convincing people to take the influenza vaccine, which is at best a 70% protective vaccine, that's a Herculean effort to get people to take that vaccine. So one that's sped through, that's brand new, that didn't go through all of the the FDA processes. Of course, there's going to be rightful pushback for that. So, and this is obviously a virus that's an RNA virus that's going to mutate very rapidly, and who knows how protective any vaccine is actually going to be against it.
Yeah. Your thoughts, Greg?
I don't have much more to add about that, to be honest with you. I mean, on the one hand, I had an initial reaction as, somebody who's been doing some political, advising of saying, don't say you won't obey, like we have to be careful to casually say that we're not going to obey the rule of law or something. Like that's a big choice to be making. But I thought about it with her, and it's like the president shouldn't be the one who's telling you. If the medical experts who are within the White House and within the establishment and at the CDC and those who are trusted leaders have to be the ones who we listen to. And the other thing is it had the benefit of being a gut punch that was true. I mean, I think half of the people who vote for Donald Trump know not to listen to his advice. He knew not to listen to his own advice when he went to Walter Reed.
Excellent point.
So if he's not going to listen to his own advice, why the hell should Kamala Harris?
Yeah, because he didn't drink the bleach, did he?
No. So, if Donald's not going to listen, I don't think Kamala has to either.
It's quite amazing to me, and it's just really, really, really frightening. So to kind of wrap this up, what do you think tomorrow is going to bring? What do you think the message out of tomorrow is going to be? Marshall, let's start with you.
Well, I think the message will be that it was basically a draw, and they both did well for their own opposite camps. I do want to say one thing about the vaccine or vaccine adjacent, which is if Trump makes it through the next 3 or 4 days and doesn't get sick again, then we're witnessing a huge medical breakthrough here in the treatment of this disease in terms of the cocktail that he got. And regardless of what the political consequences of that are one way or the other, from a public health standpoint, it's pretty amazing because this guy was very, very sick, and they may have just cured him, but we'll see. I mean, you got to give it a few more days, but it's pretty extraordinary if they were able to turn it around for him.
No, these antigens, and again, I'm not a medical person, but I'm told the treatment that he got was like $100,000, and obviously not available for the rest of us. But you're right.
That's the other thing.
If it is, if he did have it and he does get out of this, I think you're right. This will be a game changer.
Yeah.
Greg, your thoughts on what's going to come out of this? If this is going to move the needle one way or another, what people are going to remember, if anything?
I don't think I think that it shored up people's comfort level with getting to know her and understanding her as being a competent person. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to be won over, right? So, for instance, there are members of the opposing. Basically, what I think is brought her into an arena that people could look at her and say she is highly competent, and we know her differently, and she could serve in the highest offense. I think that was made clear by her performance. I think that the mainstream media and the social media together will declare her the winner, probably, but I think that they'll do so for the wrong reasons, and therefore it will be annoying and more. They will declare the winner for a lot of the biased reasons that is part of the skew that annoys people in the middle anyways, thereby making it a draw. I don't think people will get right why she actually won. So I think the assessments will be right, but they'll list the wrong reasons, and that will turn it into a kind of mushiness that doesn't move the needle much.
Yeah. Do you see any Saturday Night Live moments coming out of this? I mean, my Hollywood guys, Marshall, Greg, do you see that?
Andy, what?
What's going to come out of this for Saturday Night Live?
I mean, it'll be her smacking,
The fly.
smacking down.
The fly.
Definitely the fly.
I can only imagine the size of the insect that will be on whoever's playing Pence's head
And we
on
may
Saturday
see
night.
In
a lot
beast
of
mood.
people may rent that movie again. We may see a resurrection of the movie The Fly just for that reason.
So Jeff Goldblum's going to be a member of the Saturday Night Live cast. Is that what I'm
For
hearing?
sure.
There you go.
How many people wanted to slap Pence on the head? Anybody?
Right. But you'd have to quarantine for 14 days after you did that. So be
There is that
careful.
too. Let me get last to speak. Keith, what's going to be remembered tomorrow?
I mean, I think you'll see both camps doing their touchdown dance that they won, just like it always is. I don't think it's going to sway that many people. I do have to respectfully push back a little bit against Marshall about how this is going to be if Trump does recover, so to speak, that this is going to drive a big a push toward the expensive treatments that he had. I mean, I think that still yet this is a virus, even in elderly folks, the vast majority of them are going to recover. So in that scenario, there's a statement Mark Twain made that said any mummery will cure. You just entertain the patient long enough that they get better on their own. So if we just fed him a steady diet of refried horse turds, he probably would have gotten better, and the refried horse turds were what cured him. So I mean, I'm going to backpedal a little bit on that one and say that's a little early to
But you're the MD,
celebrate.
so I'll shut up.
Guys, I appreciate the time. Thanks so much. Enjoyed
Thank
it.
you.
I look forward to talking to you guys all again.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Good stuff.
Thank you
guys.
both. Thanks everybody.
Good stuff. Again, I appreciate the time of everyone. I'd love to hear your thoughts, though. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Direct message me. Let me know what your thoughts are. Who won the big debate? Did you watch? I don't think this is going to get the numbers that the presidential one gets, but it was entertaining nonetheless. And there were not one, but two sheets of plexiglass. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you tune in tomorrow during our regular broadcast time. So long, folks.